There, that's better. Thanks everyone for coming down. I'm John Twells from Fact Magazine, and we're going to be doing an Against the Clock lab today with Kelly Moran from Warp Records. So Kelly's going to make a track in just 10 minutes using the Fact Against the Clock format, which some of you might already be familiar with. And after that, we're going to do a short Q&A, so you can ask questions about the process or whatever. So I think that's all that needs to be said for right now. Kelly?
All right, here we go. All right. 3, 2, 1. I'll use as my little ambient sound bed, and now I'm just gonna riff all over that. It's I feel like Bob Ross right now. It's like, now we're gonna add some pretty little bells. Keep riffing, add some more textures, and here we go. I've got 1 minute left. All right, I think it's just time to throw some prepared piano on this, and then we'll all be good. right, that was 10 minutes. So, you listen. You listen to it. I don't know what happens now.
So, 1, 2. Yes, we can listen to it.
I feel like I'm on Chopped right now.
You basically are.
I watch so many competitive cooking shows, and now I know what it's like.
You got to choose
It's
your
like
ingredients.
Knives down, hands up.
So what were the elements that you had here, and then we can listen back to it?
So I have a couple. I mean, I do a lot of acoustic instruments that have been MIDI-ized. So one of the things I have in here is this plucked piano instrument. So it's actually the strings of the piano that have been plucked, but you can play it on this keyboard and it sounds like a nice little harp. And then here's a patch I built out of sampling myself eboing the piano. So you put an ebow on the piano strings, and the electroacoustic, or the electromagnetic field causes the strings to vibrate. So it sounds like sine tone, basically. So I just mapped that sample to a MIDI sampler, so now I can just play it. So that kind of formed the basis of the piece, because I just wanted to have a nice little ambient harmonic bed for everything to go on top. Because usually the way that I make music is I just set up my mics and kind of riff and improvise on piano. So that's why I just kind of set up a nice little framework and then was just improvising and adding little textures around it.
Should we listen to the whole thing and then we can take some questions?
Yeah, let's do it. All right.
Beautiful. So, does anybody have any questions for Kelly?
Don't be shy.
Come on, anything? Okay.
Can you just repeat the device again that recorded the magnetic field?
Yeah, it's called an ebow.
Ebo.
It's usually used on a guitar, but you can use them on a piano if you press the sustain down and set it on the strings. So yeah.
It's a cool little device.
Yeah.
Cheap too. Anyone else? Okay, so.
Oh wait, there's one. There's one.
Oh, brilliant.
watching Chopped. I've been watching this new cooking show that I think was filmed in California called Cooking on High, which is the first competitive cannabis cooking show. So you have to cook with cannabis oil, and then the judges are like way too stoned to like judge it after. I highly recommend it. It's on Netflix. Cupcake Wars, another brutal battle. I highly recommend just anything. If it's people competing with food, I'll watch anything.
Okay, I've got a question. What influences did you have to kind of compose in this way?
I don't know. This is just how I make music. I mean, like, I think everyone kind of figures out their own way that works for them. And for me, I've just been improvising a lot the past few years. Usually I'll just sit down at my piano and hit record and then just improvise until I kind of find like a cell or an idea that feels good, and then I'll just develop that and work into it. But I usually like record everything I do. So a lot of the times I'll just have like really big recording sessions, and then I'll listen back and kind of cherry pick everything else. But I normally don't work like this. So this I was kind of like, what would be the like most easy way to make a track in 10 minutes? So I think it's different every time. Kind of just depends on what the piece asks for.
Do you usually work with an acoustic piano rather than MIDI?
It usually starts with acoustic piano. The past couple of years have been very piano-centric for me. So that's kind of, usually it starts with piano, and then I'll add lots of electronics and synths and stuff around that. But I'm going to switch it up for the next album, so
Ooh.
beware.
Can you tell us any more?
I think he has a question.
Oh.
At the end of the 10 minutes, you had a certain level of intensity. Is that something you were aiming to get to? Or if you spent longer with the piece, would you kind of make some things a lot quieter or introduce new elements? Like, was it the level of intensity you were going for?
Yeah, I think that when I did the first keyboard element and I started doing these when I figured out how to do these like nice little rolls down the keyboard, that's when I was like, oh, that's a cool idea, I'm gonna run with it, and that I wanna develop around it. The thing that I didn't have a lot of time for, I was hoping to record like some kind of underlying chord progression so that I would be like moving the harmonic bass around a little bit more, so it wasn't just like droning an A for 2 minutes. But I definitely was hoping that I would find some nib of inspiration so that it wouldn't just be me, like, you know. So yeah, I guess I like hoped that I would get intense, but I didn't plan on it. You're welcome.
Hi, my question is, when you're composing normally, do you ever put any constraints on yourself, like this 10-minute constraint, in terms of time or instrumentation or just technique or ideas?
That's a good question. The past couple of years, I haven't really put that many constraints, but I have like a mental constraint now because I feel like the past couple records I've done have all been prepared piano. And before I did these past couple records, I didn't do that at all. I did a lot of other things, and now I feel like I've become known for this one thing. So now I know that for the next record I do, I'm going to have the constraint that it cannot be all prepared piano, just because I think I'm ready to do something else. But I think like my biggest breakthrough creatively a couple years ago came when my one constraint was that I didn't have a goal in mind. So I wasn't sitting down to make a song or to write for someone. I think sometimes getting yourself out of the mindset of there's a goal, like this practice is goal-oriented and I'm making music to reach that goal. When I eliminate that mindset and I just do it for myself and I just do it like purely for pleasure and exploration, I find that that opens me up mentally a little bit more, as opposed to like, oh, I have to sit down and like write a record, or I have to write this piece for someone. I think sometimes like taking those constraints away can be really healthy.
Anyone else?
Hey, I had a quick question. When you're composing your tracks, what do you follow as far as just like something I was actually noticing was that there wasn't any like bar counts, there wasn't any metronomes, you weren't following a, tempo. You were just freestyling it. And is that essentially what you're doing? Is you just record long takes and just go over that and over that and over that. So
Yeah, I'm pretty free. I've been kind of like designing, my live set is kind of like a liquid grid where I have these like tracks that are set up, but I like to have my playing always be very fluid. I don't really play to a metronome, and I don't really use like percussion or beats in my music. So I feel like the past couple of years I've just really been in this state where it's just all about like the physical response I'm having to the instrument and coming up with new ways of like expanding and contracting phrases, and just kind of like letting myself be more expressive. So I think I've like been pulling back a bit from the whole like metronomic, you know, system, but it's just how I feel right now.
cool.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Yes, no? Okay. Well, thanks everyone for coming. Thank you, Kelly. Stick around, we'll have another Against the Clock in just a little bit. We just have to set up.